for now, why don't we go ahead and touch base with Mr. Warlight in Alaska, who has some interesting thoughts about Islam. Mr. Warlight, walk us through it.
Oh, hey. Hey, so I was like the only person on the call screen, huh?
Yeah, we're at the top of the show. Love to hear what's on your mind.
Yeah, so I would say that Islam has had, even though it's been destructive in some ways, it's definitely had some positive aspects, about it. That is, it has been positive for civilization.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty, like, broadly speaking, I think that's a valid argument to make. I think that there's a lot to be said about the maybe functionality of religion and why it has been able to continue to replicate for so many thousands of years. I am myself not especially familiar with Islamic doctrine or really any of the particular points that you might be bringing up here. So walk us through it. What do you see as sort of valuable from Islam, or what can we maybe take from it now?
Right. So, certain cultural aspects, like, Islam has had various positives for culture.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, there's various 9/11 songs we wouldn't have, without Islam. Like the Black Hawk Down movie.
Yeah, so the joke that you're making here is that we have all of this like very strong patriotic rhetoric because Islam caused 9/11. I'm going to check in with you and see exactly where you're taking all of this, but I'm a little uncomfortable. Jimmy, let you jump in.
Yeah, I kind of don't appreciate that. I don't want to make light of the atrocities that Islam is responsible for. I mean, why stop at the movies or the 9/11 Psalms? Why not talk about all of the children that are molested in Islamic or I shouldn't say Islamic, but in the different orphanages in some Islamic countries, or the way that women are treated under Sharia law? I mean, there's no joke there to be had. And so I wouldn't, posit these jokes and try to be cute about people that are being killed in the name of an imaginary God, right? Broadly speaking, though, if you want to raise the point that religion does do good things, well, I'm not going to disagree with you that no good has ever or can ever come from religion. And that is the argument that we constantly get. And we would routinely reply with, well, that may be so, but religion is not actually necessary for those good things to happen. The good things that you might be talking about culturally, could happen in a variety of other ways, and we know that culture is not just a formation of religion, but it's also other ideas. It could be administrative as far as the creation of laws of government. It could be through arts and entertainment, through language, through different customs and traditions that have nothing to do with religion. So those are a bunch of examples of how good things that religion do also happen without religion. But I'm going to check you just like Christy did, Mr. Warlight. And I hope you're not going to try and come back and make any more grotesque jokes about the loss of life that innocent people have suffered.
All right. Well, I would say there's lots of memes that have come about because of Islam. Still there?
Yeah, we're
here. And again, I'm going to give you just a little bit more leash, but if we're talking about 9/11 jokes and discussing the value of memes in the context of something that has truly global and catastrophic consequences for millions of people, we're talking about the way that people understand themselves. We're talking about violence over the course of thousands of years. We're talking about really meaningful things. So if the next joke is just, the memes are great and the country music is better, I think we can move on. Is there more to it than that, sir?
Well, I like to read you about a meme. It goes something like, "I'm off to meet."
I think I'm good for now, if that's all right with you. Yeah, Jimmy, tacky jokes and off-color comments aside, I do think that there is a meaningful conversation that atheists are sometimes perhaps uncomfortable having about the things that have come through religion and things that we might not be ready to throw away. You and I can maybe have that discussion here in a second, but I want to give you a chance to respond to I don't know, maybe the smart, smug atheist attitude that can sometimes come up when we have some of these discussions. How is any of this striking you today?
Well, just to kind of pick up where he left off, while I don't think that it's anything that he said was funny, I kind of got the feeling that he wanted to talk about memes that pop up that poke fun at Islam, and rightfully so. I mean, that does happen, but that happens to a lot of other religions as well, right? Islam is not one that is being singled out for any reason. We see a lot of these things happen. It does detract from the conversation. I don't really think that any value is added when you start poking fun at other religions. That might be something, where there's an appropriate time and place, but I certainly wouldn't introduce that where I'm trying to kind of gain an understanding and have a meaningful discussion. And the smug atheism really, I think, is not useful, because even as an atheist myself, I would never be smug, because I don't want to put out this vibe or entertain this idea that I have nothing that I can learn.
Yeah.
We opened, Christy, you opened this show with the idea that, being perpetrated by Ken Ham, or propagated by him, that maybe heterosexual couples shouldn't be having kids. Homosexual couples should not have children. You know what? There was a time in my life where I thought the same thing. And you know what?
Sure.
It was uninformed and it was ignorant. And I had a lot to learn. And that never stops. There's never any goalpost, right? There's always something new to learn. And so the smug atheism, I think, kind of gets people to trip over themselves, really. You have to be open-minded when you approach, a meaningful conversation about these values that are so important.
Yeah, for me, it completely gets in the way of what I come here to do.
Mhm,
The
mhm.
reason that I volunteer for these shows, I mean, we're not getting paid for it. It's a good time. I've made some good friends, but I'm not really here for my health. I'm here because I feel like I owe something, that I was rescued from something, and that I would love to help spare other people from wasting too much time and energy being miserable in some of the ways that I was miserable. And when somebody comes in and suggests that, like, oh, religious people have a mental illness, they're just stupid, they are really ignoring both the people who are remarkably intelligent, not necessarily myself, but not myself, right? Who fell for these things, who grew up in
Mm.
communities or in families where there wasn't a whole lot of choice, and who experienced a lot of suffering because of it. So, we can maybe move on to the next call if you like, but definitely not a attitude that I like to see in our community, as common as it can be.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, and one point on that, Christy, it's never easy to tell somebody that you think, like, maybe they dedicated their life to a lie, or that they dedicated their self to something that is incorrect. But, these old traditions, these old habits really die hard. They come from a place where people were afraid of being killed if they didn't go along with it, and
Sure.
and that has kind of ingrained itself into this culture, this thing that we just were talking about. And so changing that is a worthwhile approach, right? It's a worthwhile cause, but it requires a delicate approach.
Yeah, yeah, fair to say.